Welcome. Today's project's all about panic attacks and what to do when panic pops its ugly head. Now, I suffered from panic attacks throughout my mid 20s. They were debilitating. They were the closest experience to death that I've ever occurred, that's ever happened in my life. I mean, at that moment, you're fearing death. It feels like this is the end. And so panic is such a emotionally exhausting experience, but it's also a battle that we have to face sometimes, right? So let's talk about panic, what it's like when panic strikes, and what you can do to overcome panic, to handle a panic attack the best way possible. Okay, so I'm going to talk about an experience of mine from my past that was a really it was an emotional experience, to say the least. This was a panic attack, and it occurred in a workshop I was taking. So this workshop was in a college. It's a week-long workshop, and it's for a job that I was applying for. And so I go into this workshop, I sit down at a desk, and all the other students are coming in, and they sit down, and then all of a sudden, I feel my heart beating. And then all of a sudden, my eyesight start to become all blurry, and I was like, oh no, right? It was that oh no in my mind that sent me into panic. Now, I felt trapped. I felt trapped because I felt like I was dying, but I also felt trapped because I didn't want to leave, because my job application was relying on this workshop, right? This was a huge moment in my life. So when I attended this workshop and I felt this panic, it sent me into a spiral because I didn't want to leave, but I also told myself maybe I'll have to leave, and maybe I'll have to forfeit this job opportunity, this next step in my life, this huge career choice. And I was sent into this panic mode. And it was horrible. So let's talk about this panic and this moment. So my amygdala, the part of my brain that initiates this fear response, this fight, flight, or freeze response, became active. It has associated something in that environment as being a threat. Now, it wasn't until I recovered from anxiety when I figured out that I actually attended a workshop months before this workshop, and I had a panic episode in that workshop. But in that 1 day workshop, I actually got up during the middle in the middle of the presentation, and I walked out of the workshop because I was panicking, because I had that fear response active. And then I went into the washroom, and then I stayed in the washroom. I was pacing back and forth. What am I going to do? How am I going to go back in there? What if I go back in there and then I feel all of these things again? So I left. I left the building. So I realized that because I left that workshop, I now attached fear to that situation. Being around all those people in a crowded environment, in a classroom like environment. So now that I'm in this other workshop and I'm feeling panic, I'm in a similar environment to the one I was in before. So obviously, my amygdala is going to be like, Brad, danger, danger. Remember what happened last time. It was horrible. You left. Because you left, you now associate that environment as being a threat. So now I'm in a different classroom, different setting, but to the amygdala, it's the same thing. It's the same environment, same people, same situation. So my fear response became active. And so I was sitting there at this workshop, this 1 week workshop, and I was afraid. Oh my God, I'm going to have to leave. I can't really breathe properly. My heart's beating. I don't know what these sensations mean. And that snowballed all of these catastrophic thoughts. Okay? So I noticed the sensations first. And health anxiety sufferers notice the sensations first. They notice the shallow depth of field. They notice that heartbeat. They notice that body pain, zap, whatever it is. And then that cascades into a snowball effect. That just builds and builds, and then it leads, and it just occurs so quickly into panic. Panic. Okay, so there are two fears anxiety sufferers fear the most, which is mortality and judgment. So in that classroom setting, I was afraid of dying, afraid of having that heart attack, and I was also afraid of the other students judging me. So I spent that day in that classroom fearful of, what if these people think I'm weird? What if they think I'm touching myself too much, touching my neck, touching parts of my body? What if they think I'm a weirdo? So I spent the day thinking that, but also fearing dying. Like, what if I have to leave in front of this presentation, in front of all these people, and the people around me judge me for getting up and leaving? So I was bombarded by all of these, both of these fears, but also with all of these different thoughts as well. So I stayed, and the reason I stayed is because I knew that I had to be here and I couldn't leave, because my future career was dependent on this workshop. I paid all this money, so I felt a lot of pressure. So I ended up staying, and I was fighting through all of these sensations. But I didn't know it was really anxiety. I didn't know. I was just fighting through these weird and strange bodily sensations that, little did I know, was caused by my amygdala. But when I stayed, something amazing happened that I didn't know. It was below my conscious awareness. I was doing the flooding technique. Now, if you don't know what the flooding technique is placing yourself in a anxiety-producing environment and riding the waves of panic, going through the motions. And when you do this, you're desensitizing yourself gradually, little by little. So what's happening is my amygdala is slowly attaching safety to this environment. Remember, the amygdala works by associations. So now I'm gradually associating this environment as being safe. The more I spend time in it, okay? That is crucial. So while I was in that classroom, my flee response, remember, flee, fight, flight, or freeze, that flight, which also means flee, was trying to get me out. It was trying to get me to leave. It's like, Brad, leave, get out. You know, this is dangerous. This is a threat to your life. So, but I stayed, and I was battling against that flee response. So, what can you do to counter this anxiety response? So, your fear response is active. In that classroom, my fear response was active. What could I do, knowing what I know now, to counter this response? Well, practice breathing. Breathing activates our rest and digest system. So 3 by 3 by 3 breathing, which is 3 seconds through the nose, pause for 3 seconds, and then exhale for 3 seconds. This activates that rest and digest and starts to calm the body down. Really important. The second thing you can do is journal. When you're feeling anxious, start writing down all the thoughts. Whatever it is, just write it all down. Try and get it out of the body, because it's crowding your mind. You can't think properly. When the amygdala is active, it takes over all other brain processes and you can't really think straight. So just write down stuff, and it's a good distraction too. Also, go into acceptance mode. What this is just accept it. You know, if I die, then so be it. You know, I'm tired of living this way. I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm just going to accept my sensations for what it is. And that is a huge thing. I used to do that going to bed. When I was feeling anxious going to bed, I would just go into full acceptance mode and be like, whatever, I'm just going to feel the sensations. It's a mindfulness technique, right? It's being connected with the sensations at a deeper level, getting familiar with those sensations. So practice these techniques and remember to stay in the environment, because if you run like I did at that first workshop, I ran out of there, man. If you do that, you're going to associate that environment, that situation, as being a threat. And so it affected me the next time when I was in a similar situation like that at that next workshop. My amygdala activated. It was saying, Brad, you know, this is the same kind of situation that you were in before. This is dangerous. You got to get out of here. So the first day was emotionally exhausting. You know, I barely got through that day, but I did. And I felt great. And that gave me a positive reward. That when you get through that panic attack, you're going to feel so good about yourself. You're going to feel that positive reward, that dopamine high. Oh my God, I can't believe I did it. You proved your old self wrong and you became that much stronger. Okay? And so after that first day of the workshop, each day after that became way better. So much more manageable. The next day was way less anxious. I would say it was 60% less. I was 60% less anxious than I was the first day. That's how huge it is just to stay in your environment, to attach safety to your situation, to that anxiety producing situation, okay? And then I also proved to myself that in this situation, I'm not going to die. That's so important to understand. It's like you're proving to that internal fear response that you are not going to die in this situation. And the more you put yourself in that situation, the less anxious you become, the stronger you become, the braver you become, and the less and the desensitization process becomes better and better and better, right? You're mentally hardening yourself more and more. And that's where I'm going to leave you on today's video. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure you subscribe, and I will see you on the next video. And remember, do not let anxiety define who you are. I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Remember to hit that subscribe button and that bell so that whenever a new video of mine appears, you will be the first to know. Namaste.